This is a reminder about how to use a micrometer. There are other videos out there which are probably more professionally done. We have a small gap over here, and if you want to know the distance of that gap right there, you come over here. Now the first thing you do is you pick out some digits. Oh, I'm thereby changing it. We have an inner shaft right there which has a 0 on it and followed by a horizontal line with a bunch of vertical lines there, and then we have this outer barrel right here. So we have an inner shaft, outer barrel, and then the gap. The size of that gap, if we ignore where 0 actually is, we'll talk about that in a moment. So as you're looking at this barrel right here, the lines on top, we've got the 3 visible lines on top, and let's actually set it. So we have 0 there followed by 3 vertical lines on top. Each of those represents a millimeter. Down below we have 4 of these lines down here. That should be halfway in between the ones up top. Those 4 down there are ½ millimeters. So the first thing you do is you figure out how many millimeters, ignoring the outer barrel right now, how many millimeters have we gone over? Well, we went over 1, 2, 3 and a half. So you would write down 3.5 millimeters. Now we need to figure out how much are we past 3.5 millimeters. That's when we come to the outer barrel. Dang it. Well, it's a slightly different result than it was before. That's how sensitive this thing is. So we have this line that's running horizontal here. And the question is, where does that horizontal line hit this outer barrel? Well, it's in between 20 and 25, I can tell you that. It is just in between 23 and 24. So I would write down 23, and now we're going to estimate. Need to make sure I'm sort of lined up with it. To me, it's not quite halfway between 23 and 24. There's 23 right there. It looks like it's closer to 23 to me than it is to 24. And I would estimate 23.3. So my gap is 3.733 millimeters. And that number there is supposed to be a 3. Or 0.00373 meters. Let's do another one of those, then we'll talk about the 0. Up top, we have the 5 millimeter mark. We know we're definitely past 5 millimeters. There's the gap for you. We're definitely past 5 millimeters. We're past 6 millimeters because you can see the line up there, and you can start barely seeing there's one below it. And the question is, are we past 6.5 millimeters? Or are we just shy of 6.5 millimeters? Well, we're actually going to be just shy of it, because if you look at this outer barrel here, we're not quite to the 50. If this said 0 right here, then we would be at it. If it were, 40s and 50s, then we're just before it. And if it had been, 0 through 10, we were just after it. So I've got to pay attention to that. So that's 6 millimeters, looks like we're between 40 and 41. Looks like just a hair past 40. So I'd be so bold as to say that is 6.401 millimeters. Now you might look at that and seeing where it's crossing the line. Let's see if we can actually get it to focus. We cannot. And also notice there's this parallax issue of if I'm down here or if I'm over there. So we do need to make sure that we look at it straight on. Let's talk about the other end of this. You need to make sure you don't over tighten, and some of them have already been over tightened. And so as you're doing it, you basically turn this knob here until it clicks. And so that's going to be 0 right there. Now ideally, this 0 on the outer barrel would line up with that horizontal line that you can see on the inner shaft, and it doesn't. We are off. So the question is, how far off are we? So sort of working backwards, thinking of that as 50, and we are before it by, looks like 5.8 that's a question. Let's see. Make sure I'm head on there. Looks like about 5.1. And so 0.051 millimeters. That's how far off we are. So since this number is before 0, say take this distance right here, we would add 0.051 millimeters. It'd be as if this was the measurement that we had on the first one that we did, 3.733 millimeters, and relative to 0. However, when it actually is fully compressed, it's actually at this point. So the actual distance would be from here to here. And so it would be 3.733 minus negative 0.051 to get the actual distance. Now, we're off by basically a little more than a 1/20th of a millimeter. Does it make a difference? Well, yeah, it does. Especially for you future engineers, it could be a matter of life and death when you're doing that kind of stuff. For the future English majors looking at this, probably not going to make a huge difference, but it will for the lab. So there it is.